Here's the big question. How is it that most entrepreneurs hustle and are always busy and struggle to take just one step forward only to fall two steps back? They're dedicated, determined, and driven, but only a few finally break through and win. This show uncovers those quantum leap patterns of highly successful people so you can simply model what they do and apply to your future success. That's the question, and the answers are right here. My name is Brigitte Höfele, and this is the Success Patterns Show. And welcome everyone on this beautiful Tuesday. It is my honor, my privilege to be here and welcome you to the Success Pattern Show, where we put the do into learn, do, teach. My name is Brigitte Höfele. I'm the founder of the Success Patterns Movement and the CEO of the Center of NLP. And people ask me, what is the Success Patterns Show? Or to put it in my dear friend Johnny Cass's words, who's from Australia, and he says pattern. Took me forever to understand that he's actually meaning patterns. Okay, Johnny, it's patterns. So the definition of pattern is an example for others to follow. And can we agree that success can be followed if you can define it, if you know what success means to you? Because success is an interesting thing. Can we agree on that? It shapes the success meaning shapes within each individual person, success seeker, and it's not limited to one's business or personal life. It can be either or, it can be both. Because success is a unique concept, we give you here in the Success Pattern Show the scaffolding to build your own empire. In this show, we are decoding the patterns that led to other people's success of our guest experts, so you can then encode it in your own success today. As humans, we're hardwired for hands-on application by living teachers, and we're clearly not theoreticians because they talk a good game. We are here, grandmasters at work, which means you're at the right place at the right time. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here at the right place at the right time. And one of the laws of success that I teach states that success is modeled. And that's what we're here. That's what we're going to do with our guest experts, our success patterns guest experts, because success is already yours. So stay tuned. At the end of the show, we have a very special gift for you that our guest expert has brought specifically for you. You don't want to miss it. We have a great show for you today. I have an incredible person that I just spent about a half an hour just learning about, this gentleman that I have not heard or not met before. I heard about him before, but I've never met him before. His name is Robert White. And he's been there and done that with business success and also business failure. And I guess in order for you to know what to do, it's really good for you to know what not to do and actually learn from that. It's another success law that states there is no failure, only feedback. Robert White, who is my guest expert for you today, utilizes rich personal history of entrepreneurial success as an executive mentor and leadership trainer to develop extraordinary personal leadership skills. His focus, alignment, and commitment, and boy, is he committed. I mean, it just oozes out of him. Wait till you get to meet him. He founded and led training industry success stories of Lifespring and ARC International, and he has certified a combined 1,300,000 graduates through his trainings. He's lived and worked in Japan, in Hong Kong, Mainland China for 23 years, and he's authored essays for award-winning photo journal One World, One People, and his bestseller, Living an Extraordinary Life, is available in English and in traditional and simplified Chinese. There's AudioFile Magazine awarded Robert's audio home study program Achieving Extraordinary Success in 2011 Earphones Award for Best Spoken Word Personal Development Program. Oh my goodness, you guys, you are in for a treat. Ladies and gentlemen, will you stand on your feet and help me welcome Mr. Robert White? Hello, Robert. So good to have you here.
Well, thank you, Brigitte, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. It was one of those where I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, I can't wait to hear what I have to say.
I know that feeling.
But the most special thing about me and why I'm eager to be with you is that I'm a very average person. I struggle with my weight. I've been remarkably good at getting married, remarkably bad at staying married. I'm not so disciplined sometimes. I mean, I have a lot of weaknesses. I think a strength that I have is that early on, I started to notice patterns in myself and in others. And I found out that there were patterns that work and patterns that are very dysfunctional. And, it's usually better to do the ones that work and see if you can minimize the ones that are dysfunctional. So that's kind of my background.
Right. So Robert, you're telling me you're not a robot?
Very human.
Very human. Am I glad? Because we don't want to hear from robots. We want to hear from real people with real stories, with real feedback. I'm not going to call them failures because they're all great feedback, right? And they have made, I speak out of my own experience, they've made us rich. They have made us rich in information that we can learn from. And, as we were talking before we got on the show today, you shared with me that while you lived in China, that you trained over 100,000 people in a short time frame. And I also know, and I want you to talk a little bit about that, you're an introvert. And it sounds like you're almost an introvert that learned to be at times an extrovert. Like I'm an extrovert that has learned to actually, sometimes for my own sake, it's good to be an introvert. So tell me about those rituals, those patterns that you have learned to lead you to where you are today, and that will lead you into the future of what's about to happen in your life.
Look, a lot of my background came from a simple decision when I was 27 years old. A friend went out to California and did what a lot of people were doing at that time, which is he attended one of the early human potential movement trainings. And he came back and his life changed dramatically. And I witnessed that, and I got through my own resistance, finally did the seminar myself. And Brigitte, all these years later, it's a bit of a cliche, but my life changed, and permanently. That experience stays with me till today. And my life improved, my business improved. I ended up getting into that business and loving it. So, but in that training, one of the things I learned is that from childhood, in addition to being wired as an introvert, I learned about being extremely critical and demanding. So in building a company, that's a pretty bad pattern to have in attracting and retaining the best people. If you show up as criticism most of the time, generally people don't want to be around you. And so I'm kind of simplifying what happened for me there, but that was a big part of it. And that has served me well all of my life, is to learn to take a deep breath and realize that I'm in charge of the atmosphere that gets created around me. And if there's a secret to my success, it's attracting great people and empowering them to do what they do best. And that's led to an incredible life that I've enjoyed.
How do you attract those people? I mean, it sounds easy. It sounds exciting. How do you attract those kind of people that you want to work with? How do you know?
Look, if I look at the problems that my current clients are facing, many of them are facing the challenge of attracting great people today, particularly younger people. And Peter Drucker, the famous management theorist and author, is credited for saying this, but I actually have discovered that many other people said it before he did. And that is that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Strategy for breakfast.
That the culture you create is way more important than anything, any strategy, any product offering, whatever. And if you take a look at the culture of an organization, and it's key to attracting people. One of the things that happened as a result of the internet's uber presence in our lives is today young people can go online, and with any major organization, they can find out your culture. They can find anonymous postings from people that already work in the company they're considering joining about culture. Does the company have a clearly articulated purpose, and are they moving steadily toward realizing it? Do they have a compelling vision? Not just one that's good maybe for a few of the stockholders or for the CEO, but is it a vision that attracts talented people, that they want to be part of that? And then do they have values that are positive, life-affirming values, something in NLP I know works with quite extensively, but are they living them? Are they walking the talk? I cannot tell you. Yeah, I can't tell you the number of companies I've visited and talked with a CEO where I'll ask about those three things of the purpose, the vision, and the values, and then he shows me the poster on the wall or some study from McKinsey or a coffee cup or some gimmick. Their daily minders have all these sayings on them. And yet when I dig into the company and talk with, let's say, the top 20 people, I find out that they're not living their purpose, vision, and values. It's just for show. And so today, attracting great people, I think more than ever, requires that attraction effort around clarity and authenticity and integrity around your purpose, vision, and values. That's how you get the best people. And quite frankly, I paid better than anybody in the industry. And I forced people to take vacations. And with our work, where people get so passionate about it, we had to set rules about how long they worked each day. It wasn't about getting them to work longer hours. It was getting them to work shorter hours and go home, take care of their family, or participate in a charity outside our work or a community involvement. And but that was one of our values, was the health and well-being of our staff. So we either acted on it or we didn't. And but it is true that on this conceptual side, purpose, vision, values, extremely important as a foundation to attract good people. But then you better pay them well, you better treat them well, you better be fair, you better be willing to fire those people that are inconsistent with your values. It becomes quite practical.
Yeah, and it becomes quite multi-leveled in that strategy itself. So if you've ever listened to anything that I teach, I always talk about the win-win-win, right? When we are when I'm invited to come speak from stage and someone says, do you have something to sell? I would say, yeah, I have an incredible program that helps people, but it's not just something that I sell. It is something that I know is so beneficial to people in their lives. So it's not just one win for, hey, buy my product, buy my service, and here's the link, and now everyone go do it, right? That would be only a one win for myself. There's got to be a second win, a win-win that we often hear of. But then there's that third win, and I really harp on that. It's that win for you, a win for me, and a win for the greater good. So sending them home early so they can be with their family, or being involved in the community and giving back in the community, or whatever it is that they might be doing. There's that third win. There's that incredible third aspect that gives that kind of evolves the whole purpose behind just working. How do you create those win-win-win scenarios in your own life moving forward, and perhaps even by growing and learning and building better, greater businesses?
Well, my company, the most recent large company, was called ARC International, which was an acronym for awareness, responsibility, and communication. That you need to wake up, that awareness piece, and then take personal responsibility for your life and your actions. And then finally, you better develop mastery in communications. And my former wife, Diana, has a lot of wisdom and is really articulate in a very special way. And she uses a different expression for awareness, which I like. And that is to develop a higher state of noticing, of really noticing yourself first internally, but also noticing your environment, really noticing the people around you. And that's been a lesson that I've had to learn over time. I think I'm reasonably good at it today, but there are times when I've been, the classic expression, having the consciousness of a brick. And I've been there. I know the damage that leads to in for a leader particularly, or for a parent, or for somebody involved in the community. Can you really notice what's happening within you and around you? And the key for us in our work, and you asked me during our pre-talk about methodology, you've got to have an entry into people if you're going to work in the transformational space. Our entry is your feelings, your emotions. And we use lighting, we use sound, we use trickery, we use music, we use poetry. It's more Eastern than Western, our approach, because what we want to get to is your ideal resource state. Does that sound like familiar language to you?
Sounds very familiar language to me, yes. You're singing my song and speaking my language.
Well, in the early days of NLP, neurolinguistic programming, we brought in a very famous person in that field and had her work with our trainers. And I was a student. I'm still a student of Laura, and I see the value in the work. It has a very direct implication for anybody that wants mastery in communication. And, it's like groundbreaking work. So very cool.
It's the meta program of our communication. Absolutely. And I love that higher state of noticing. And the noticing, if we look at the word noticing, notice is something that we see. It is something that we can also hear. So, my big thing is listening. My big thing is tuning into what is said and what is not being said. Right. So there's that piece in that noticing.
What's the meaning behind the words? That's the key. And if you're working in that kind of trusted advisor space that I work in with executives, is I want to know what they say and what they think and what they feel, but I'm kind of listening for the meaning behind all of that, because it's meaning that really moves people and causes lasting change in attitudes, habits, and behaviors.
And the behaviors is exactly what we actually have an influence over with our communication when we notice, when we're in that heightened state of noticing and communicating on a quality level, not just communicating for the sake of communicating, but communicating on a quality level. I love the responsibilities that you touched on as well. What humbles you?
Well, I think the more, you can talk about academic learning, you can talk about behavioral learning, experiential learning, and there's another aspect that I'm not an expert in, but I'm a student. That's spiritual learning. I think the thing that humbles me is realizing that one of my friends, Arjun Sin, says that we are one of one. 7 billion people on the planet, and we are unique. And there's nobody else like us, really, in every aspect. And so that's humbling when you get that. Yes, I've got some special gifts, and I can choose to express them or not. Yes, I have some abilities, some experiences that I can contribute, but I'm one of one. I'm a member of a world family. And I think if you really get that at a spiritual level, that brings humility. Obviously, I had a major failure in my life. I fired 240 people and closed 15 offices, and took a big hit to my reputation. So that's humbling. And frankly, divorce is humbling if you take it seriously, if you take responsibility for it. So I think there's a lot of things that can humble you. We seem to have an epidemic of narcissism in our country right now.
Yeah, boy, you said that right.
And part of I think the enemy of narcissism is putting yourself in situations that humble you, that cause you to stop and go, wait a minute, this show is not all about me. There's a community here, my family, my colleagues.
There's that third win.
Yes, and not because it's a government rule or regulation. I think any kind of change that comes without changing hearts and minds is just totally useless. On video this morning, I saw people on airplanes cheering because the mask mandate was dropped, and that's going against the flow. That's going against the media. That's going against our government. But people have a kind of natural knowing when they tune into it. And when you tune into what's really true for you, I think that's when real growth takes place. That's when humility fits. I've also been guilty of too much humility. I didn't put my name on any of my companies. I worked from the background. I know that I was less effective. I was more effective and I was less effective because of that choice. And, so the humility part can be false, and but it can also be unrecognized celebration of self. So that's been part of my journey.
So being humble and being and humility is not the same, clearly, and it's all in a dose, from what I'm hearing. Of all of the people that you've always been this very unique, one person, Robert White. Well, if we would look, there's probably several Robert Whites out there, but only one with this specific fingerprint. Of all of the things that you have done and the people the characteristics that carry Robert White as he's sitting here right now, which three characteristics do you want to move into the future with you as you are on maybe new endeavors, maybe bigger endeavors, maybe the same, only different endeavors? If you could choose three aspects, what would they be? Three characteristics.
Wow, I didn't know you were going to come up with difficult questions, Brigida. That make me really think. Well, the first one that comes to mind and important to me is vulnerability. I think particularly for men, the way we show up in terms of our image often gets in the way of accomplishing what we really want to accomplish in relationships and in leadership roles. So we learn to hold back information, particularly information that might embarrass us or have it threaten our image in any way, these carefully constructed images that we create. So the first answer to your question would be, I want to increasingly develop my willingness to be vulnerable, to really tell the truth and be authentic with people. That my great teacher on that, I've never met, of course, but along with 50 million other people, I've watched Brene Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability. And I think that's like a primer that every executive should watch maybe multiple times and read a couple of her books, because she teaches from the standpoint of her own journey. And that's very, very powerful. She is an academic. She's done the research, but when it comes down to, that rubber meets the road thing, she teaches from a standpoint of her own experience. And it's so real. And then she's so funny. The woman has probably never told a joke in her life, and she's hilarious. So I think that's a vulnerability. I think, in my mentoring programs, I have a filter that I look at organizations and executives through, and I check off these three things. So that would mean I'm going to four things with your question, but it's focus, alignment, and commitment.
Focus
If I'm working with an executive or with their teams, I want to know how clear is the focus on what it is we're up to here. You know, what is it that we are working on and we absolutely own. And then that second part is alignment. Particularly today, workforces are diverse. They're diverse in gender, in faith, ethnically, and in age, and particularly in that age piece. Younger people have a different set of values and desires, and the culture has taught them that they can have it all. And so, you can sit on the sidelines and be the grumpy old guy, which I am sometimes, and say, well, that's wrong. But if you're the leader and you're trying to attract the best and brightest, you better make room for people that don't share your exactly the same values. That's where alignment comes in. That as long as we are moving toward the same compelling vision, let's, I hate to quote Mao Tse-tung, the communist killer, but, he said, let 1,000 flowers bloom. And that is against what a lot of people are taught about leadership in the Western world, is that, we want to control everything. We want everybody to think alike. We want them all to act alike. The classic thing when I was growing up was the IBM guys in the white shirt and the tie and the suit jacket always on, all of that. Well, that's a metaphor for a whole lot of conventional thinking. And it doesn't work today for everybody. For some people, but particularly for younger people, it doesn't work as well. And so can you create a workplace that allows for some difference, some diversity, while pursuing the same goal?
Yes.
Set of goals. And that's the alignment piece. And then finally, you mentioned this gift that I offer to people whenever I appear like this. That includes our 8 principles. And one of the things I say when I'm teaching that material personally is that the 8th principle is commitment. And if you really get it, you can forget the other 7. That ultimately we do what we're actually committed to doing. And so if you look at organizations today and what I'm working on, it's to increase focus, alignment, and commitment with my clients, which means, of course, I have to also live it myself. And
you do have a choice, but it would be beneficial for you to actually live what you're teaching, because now we have that alignment again, right? We're being congruent with what we said we're going to do and what we are actually going to do. And speaking of, and you have great feedback here. I get thumbs up, I get wows, I get love Robert White, I get all of these great feedbacks from our listener. Before we go into the gift that you brought, what is and I'm pretty sure it's just like when I get that question, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pick one, although I do have one book in mind. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I've said this so many times, I'd like to come up with a new one, except the favorite one is still Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl's, in a sense, his memoir of being in the death camps, what he learned about survival and thriving and about life. That's my favorite book. When I released my book, first of all, for 20 years, people told me to write my book, and I had a zillion excuses for it. And I'm good at it, at coming up with a good story. And then I got kind of shamed into writing it by Stephen Covey's book, the 7 Habits book, because a lot of that content is actually our content, that we developed over the years, and a healthy dose of Mormon faith. So it's a pretty good book. I mean, there's some really good stuff in it. But it sold 22 million copies, and and then people started coming to me and they'd say, well, I went to the Covey Leadership Program. I'd say, well, did you get value? They say, no. I say, well, then why did you go? I'm sure you went because your friends told you to go, right? Yes. I said, well, why'd you go? I read the book. So I wrote the book, but I'm really nervous, right? I'm just super nervous because it's a very public thing for an introvert to release a book. You got to get out and promote it, or have a garage full of books. And the great thing that happened, and my joke is that happened for about 18 minutes is some really great people that I really respect love my book. Ken Blanchard loved my book, or Jimmy Colano, or a lot of names that you would recognize. And they ordered the copies for their families and friends. And, it's great. But it was about 18 minutes of feeling good. And then they would say, well, but I was disappointed in one thing. And I, of course, would say, what disappointed you? And they would say, the book is not about you and your extraordinary life. And it's not. It's about our graduates and their interaction with our material. So it's real world stuff. I think that's why it's become a bestseller.
I applaud you for that.
But there's one chapter that's about me. And now I don't reveal that in the book. So this is the big reveal, right? The chapter is the most limiting belief. You are not enough. You are not enough. And I lived most of my life, including right up to the time I wrote that book, with that belief about me. And I know where it came from. I've done enough therapy. I've been in enough trainings. I had a hypercritical, angry, violent mother, an alcoholic father. I was told I was not enough repeatedly, in spite of evidence that I was up to something in the world and I could accomplish some things. And in working with these super fantastic executives that I work with now, they're the smartest, the brightest, the most driven, the hardest working. A lot of people get into this. Well, they make too much money. They don't make enough for what they deal with, right? And so I'm just in awe of them. And I can't tell you the number of them that when we really get into it, they do that out of a reaction to, I am not enough. In an extreme form, it's called the imposter syndrome. But even the people that would not qualify as imposter syndrome, they have this nagging fear that they're not enough. They haven't done enough. And one of the things that I'm working on, are you familiar with Eric Donavant? Is that a familiar name?
I'm not. No.
I think a lot of people are going to become familiar with Eric. He runs a financial advisory company. There's about 1 million of those in America, down in some little unknown city in Louisiana. He runs it on Christian principles. Doesn't go to church, but he runs it on Christian principles. And his focus is family wealth and transfer of family wealth. However, if you're not willing to up your philanthropic giving, you're not going to be a client of Eric's, because he considers that to be a responsibility of people that, and then he looks at what gets in the way of that. And it's, I am not enough. I'll never have enough money. I'll never have enough power. I'll never have enough. And that stops them from being fully human, because it's fully human to bring people along with you, to take care of the people in your community, all of that stuff. Eric is so clear about that stuff. I'm learning from him about that. And
I want to have him on my show.
That would be wise, actually. And also, he's an incredible personality. Like, I'm talking in a really positive sense. I'm not talking about Hollywood fake. I mean, he's the real deal. Great husband, father, and businessman. Nice combination. So that's part of my goal in working with executives today, is to have them see their impact in a much broader way, because they know how to get stuff done. I came back to the U.S. in 1986 from the long stay in Japan. And one of the things, I wanted to plug into the community, and I chose Colorado, even though I had never lived here. And I knew only a handful of people. And so one of the things I did, I read on the newspaper about this guy, this pastor, who was giving away Thanksgiving food baskets, a turkey and all the fixings. And he was doing this with such numbers. It was mind blowing. So I networked around. I found out how to volunteer, and I went down, and there were hundreds of people volunteering, and I handed out turkeys and unpacked boxes and did all that kind of stuff. But what was amazing to me was, at the same time, the corporation Walmart was being savaged in the press. And and I'd lived in Japan all those years. This was all new to me. Like, why are people taking on this company seems to be they sell products for good prices, and poor people can buy stuff there. And I'm not an expert about that, but like, where are they getting all this bad press? And then you take a look at this guy, the pastor that did this was called Daddy Bruce. His name was Bruce, and they called him Daddy Bruce. And Daddy Bruce had recruited Walmart to handle all of the logistics in the background to serve thousands of people.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of people say, yeah, I want to help people, right? Well, when you do it on that kind of scale, you better have somebody that has some big trucks and forklifts and people that know how to drive the truck and how to drive the forklift and how to keep things cold and not have food spoil.
Well, and not slip out the back door and say, oh, I said I wanted to help, but this is too much. I don't want to do this. I'm out. Because there are enough people out there doing that as well.
So my point is not that I don't even know enough about Walmart to be a huge fan, but what I saw that day was such excellence and leadership, and they're quiet about it. There wasn't any big sign that said supported by Walmart. You could see it was their trucks and it was their people in uniform, but they just did it. So I think that's the model for the future. I think I'm not a big believer in government getting things done, and charities are just being, I think their focus, alignment, and commitment are questionable. Yeah. I think business and business people are the answer.
When.
There's
that
exactly.
third win. Yeah.
And because they get their staff involved, the staff becomes more proud of their company and can brag about it to their friends, and then recruiting becomes easier. You know what I'm saying here. This is selfish, but it's in a good cause, and
it's beautiful. I want to have him on my show.
Well, we as business people, we need to recognize our strengths, what we do well, and that it's needed, it's wanted. It's actually the key to a better future for all.
Yeah. Wise words from Robert White. Robert, we're getting to the end of our show, and I want people to plug into your wisdom to get in touch with you. How do they get in touch with you?
Well, my website, extraordinarypeople.com, is a good start. And on there, you can buy my book. You can get a signed copy. If you go to Amazon or all of those other places, you can still get a copy, and you can get the digital version, Kindle, which with Amazon, it's running about 10 Kindle sales to every physical book. So the world has changed, right? But the other thing you can do there is you can register for my weekly Extraordinary Minute e-zine. It's I've been doing it for over 10 years. There's thousands of people that fortunately that read it. It is timeless wisdom, a comment from me, and it's all designed to be read in 1 minute or less. And what you get when you register for that is a 28-page document that I've been working on for 40 years, which is about achieving extraordinary success in your life, in your work, and in your personal life. And included in that is a full explanation of those 8 principles and a self-assessment little exercise you can do. It's the only thing I do where I recommend that people act non-ecologically, because I recommend they print it out, and because it's like a book, and it gives you the chance to take that little exercise and go through it. You'll learn a lot. So those are 2 ways.
I love it. I will print it out.
Good. Look, I want to be in touch with more people. I think I've got something to give, and I think people that get into relationship with me always enrich my life in various ways. So
I feel so much richer after our hour together today. I know you guys only had him for like 40 minutes today. I got Robert a little bit longer than you guys. Go ahead, go to www.extraordinarypeople.com/power-principles-4-leadership-success. I'm going to say that again, extraordinarypeople.com/power-principles for leadership success, and there's a dash in between each word. Go ahead and get your 28-page PDF, your ebook on extraordinary leadership. Robert, it was such an honor. It was such an incredible time. I have learned many great things from you today. Thank you for showing up in a really, really big and authentic way. I appreciate you. I can't wait to have you coming back. And for everyone else that is tuning in again next Tuesday, same time, same place, thank you for being here. This was the Success Pattern Show. Thank you for tuning in to the Success Pattern Show at www.thesuccesspatternshow.com. My name is Brigitte Höfele.